Great. Thank you, Jamie. Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who I haven't met, my name is Juan Pablo Prieto, and I serve as the Director of Diversity Programs and the DBE Liaison Officer for CTA. We are very excited to launch our 4th Small Business Educational Series, especially given the circumstances. As some of you know, we were scheduled to launch this program earlier this year, but had to postpone because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are glad that everyone here is safe and healthy and ready to learn how to grow your businesses. To give you a little history on the educational series, it started off as a series for work that we were planning on doing for the Green Line in 2017. So we called it the Green Line Educational Series. Then in 2018, we had work coming out for our Your New Blue program, which is the rehabilitation of the O'Hare branch of the Blue Line. So we called it the Your New Blue Small Business Educational Series. Then last year, we had just finished awarding the Red and Purple Modernization or RPM Design Build contract. So we called it the RPM Small Business Educational Series. Every year we look to improve the series, and we've added classes in response to feedback from participants. This year, we decided that this series is now a permanent part of our small business program. So it is now called the CTA Small Business Educational Series. This series would not have been possible without the hard work of our adopted team member, Laura de Castro. Laura is a senior project manager for our chief administrative officer and stepped up when we had vacancies in our small business development and outreach team. She will be stepping up to help us again as we will soon have a vacancy in our workforce initiatives group. I am very grateful to her dedication to our team and to the small business community. I don't know if Laura's on. Oh, she is.
I did. Yeah, I am on. Thank you, JP. I really appreciate that. And I have enjoyed working with you all, and I'm excited that Jamie's on board and leading this series now. And I know that everything's going to go well this year. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I would also like to acknowledge the tremendous support we received from our president, Dorval Carter, our CAO, Tom McCone, our interim board chair, Arabel Alvaro Rosales, and the rest of the CTA board and staff. Jamie and Chanel have been hard at work making sure that we are providing the same content and interactive sessions in this virtual environment that we have had during our past in-person series. That being said, we know we are not perfect. If you have suggestions as to how we can be better, please do not hesitate to share it with us. We are very intentional when we are crafting our programming, but if we can be better, we want to know. I actually learned a saying during a leadership academy here at CTA from Dr. Russ Rogers. He said, if this isn't as good as it gets, what does better look like? And I try to ask myself and my team that every day. So thank you all for participating in our series, and I look forward to seeing your businesses grow and compete for CTA work. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Neely, our Manager of Small Business Development and Outreach.
Thank you, Juan Pablo. And good afternoon to everyone, and thank you all for joining. Exciting times as we venture off into the Small Business Education virtual series this fall. You have reached the right place at the right time here via this Zoom every Tuesday from here on out until October 27th. Each week, we will cover a different module or objective. This week, of course, we're going to go over Get on Board, Business Opportunities, followed by Management at its Best, instructed by Hewitt, No Guesstimating, Nailing Your Estimates, On Schedule and On Budget, Getting Paid and Closing It Out, Managing Your Talent, Technology Benefits to Your Business, and Getting Prepared for Future Projects. As you can notice, each week gives us a sequential opportunity for you to build the capacity for your business. The objective for this series and this cohort is to make you procurement ready for CTA selfishly, but also for other agencies to help build business and build capacity to obtain bigger and better contract opportunities. With that, and as Juan Pablo mentioned, my name is Jamie Neely. I am the manager of the Small Business Development and Outreach Program here at Chicago Transit Authority. That's who I am. We would love to know who you all are. So I will just call on each of you individually. If you can unmute yourself and just briefly introduce yourself by including your name, your business, short business description, and what you plan to get out of the CTA Small Business Education Series.
Okay, can I go first?
I'm not sure who that is, but I'm going to call on the list of the names that's on my Zoom, if that's okay, just to make sure I don't miss anyone. So I'm going to start with Jermaine Carter.
That's me.
Awesome. How you doing, Mr. Carter?
I'm all right. How are you, Jamie? How you been?
Good.
Congratulations.
Good. Thank you.
Again, my name is Jermaine Carter, president of J. Carter Construction Incorporated. We're a general contracting firm located here in Chicago. Our specialty is concrete, curb and gutter removal replacement, PCC concrete sidewalks, removal replacement, saw cutting, and other concrete related specialties. So what we plan on getting out of the CTA thing is to learn actually how to procure work with the Chicago Transit Authority on these large projects that are out already, and just to properly learn the documentations that are required and the other just what it entails to be a CTA contractor or subcontractor. Just to successfully complete a project, everything that entails to going with along with that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jermaine.
Right.
Next, we have Beatrice Steele.
Hi there, I'm Beatrice Steele with Lawn Care Maven. We are an eco-friendly lawn care company, and what I'm looking for is just to learn how to do business with CTA to help beautify our city.
Uh-oh. Are you done there, Beatrice? I'm not sure if it muted or if I muted you.
Were you able to hear me?
It kind of cut off.
Okay, well, I can start again.
Thank you.
My name is Beatrice Steele with Lawn Care Maven, which is a eco-friendly lawn care service. And what we're looking forward to getting out of this series is to learn how to work with CTA to help beautify our city.
Awesome. Thank you. And before I go to the next one, and my extreme apologies, I didn't get a chance to introduce my colleague, Chanel Harman, who also supports the Small Business Development and Outreach team. Chanel, would you mind introducing?
Hello, everyone. I'm excited that you were able to join us today. Just a brief summary. My name is Chanel Harman. I'm the coordinator for Small Business Development and Outreach at Chicago Transit Authority, and I work with Jamie Neely as well as Juan Pablo.
And she's been huge in making sure that you all have all the access information that you need and helping organize this series. So thank you, Chanel. Next, we have Curtis.
Hello, my name is Curtis Harman. I'm with Fidelity Plumbing LLC. We're a MB certified plumbing company located in Lake County, Illinois. And what we plan on getting out of this is learning how to do business with the CTA.
Awesome, thank you. Next, I have Danielle S.
Is that Danielle Sanders?
I have two. I have a Danielle Sanders and a Danielle Sanders.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Danielle Sanders. I have a non-for-profit. It's called Smiley Creators Angels Ministries. And what we do, we help mental health. It's a mental health. We help with mental health, spiritual development, helping others become a whole functioning self through self-study. What interested me really was the certifications with ocean things, and also learning new things is what I like to get up out of here, and actually seeing exactly how I can help and what what I can achieve, what to help expand our corporation.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. And I also have another Danielle with a Y. Danielle S with a Y.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I'm with QRSE, and we are a construction management company. I'm just looking for any tools or information to help the company advance.
Awesome, and thank you. Next we have, and I'm reading off the names of which comes up on your Zoom profiles, estimating.
Yeah, hi. I wish that would have come up better. I'm Ron Monroe. I am the chief estimator for AMS Elite Solutions. We're a WBE, DBE, EDWOSB certified trucking company here in Chicago. We work extensively with the CTA where we're actually contracted on the RPM right now. But being in the WBE environment and knowing how all of the compliance and regulations have been changing, we always try to stay up on all of this with everything. And I know the CTA, we do several of your programs, and we found them very, very helpful for training, and that's what we're here for.
Awesome, and thank you for the kind words. Is that Julie Savitz, AMS?
That's Julie.
Awesome, I love Julie.
I know, we love you too, Jamie.
Cool, welcome and thank you. Next I have Helen Torres. Helen Torres, if you'd like to unmute yourself and introduce. There you go. I see you, Helen. I don't hear anything yet, though. No. And it isn't muted. You took it off mute, but I'm still not hearing anything on your end. Helen, maybe come out and then try to come back in, and then I'll come back to you if that's okay, Helen. Okay. Javier Cadena?
Yes, my name is Javier Cadena. I'm from Studio ARQ. We are an architectural firm based in Chicago. We're MBE, DBE also. And basically, I'm looking to gain some knowledge on how to acquire business opportunities with CTA and how to successfully manage projects based on their expectations.
I like that, Javier. Successfully manage the projects. It's one thing to win the contract, right? But managing the contract once we get it is a whole nother beast. So I appreciate that, Javier, and welcome.
Thank you.
Who do we have next? Lacey's iPhone? Lacey?
Yeah, this is Lacey Richter with Illini Drilled Foundations. We are a deep foundation specialty subcontractor, and we are just trying to figure out how to do business with the CTA and just kind of grow. It's a family business, me and my family, just kind of grow our business and do business with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you and welcome. Next, we have Melissa Fuller.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Melissa Fuller. I'm the owner of MTC Properties One. We are a real estate development company. Basically, we acquire land and build structures on it. I actually attended the RPM Financial Outreach program a couple of years ago, and going in, I knew the company really wasn't ready, but I still attended and got some great information and found out that about the CTA Small Business Program. It was recommended to me as an instrument to help grow the business, to become prepared to work on the RPM. So that's what led me here, and I'm interested in growing the company to hopefully go back and do something on the RPM project.
Awesome, Melissa, and thank you. And I appreciate the candidness of saying, hey, I attended, one, being proactive so you can learn about the information, but also understanding where you may not have been yet procurement ready, but hey, this is what they're telling me I need. What are some resources that I can take advantage of to help me get there? So thank you for taking those steps and showing up today.
That was it. Thank you. And congratulations.
Thank you. Next we have Mike Say. Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Say from All
Okay.
State Concrete Cutting. We're concrete cutters. We do slab sawing, wall sawing, coring, demo, interior demo, structural demo, and mechanical demo. And 60% of my work is with IDOT and the CTA. I'm on the job right now on the RPM project, doing deep cores, 24 foot, and some other types of coring out there right now. And then we'll be doing wall sawing and slab sawing out there. We're at that hinge where we're growing from a small business into a medium. And it's a big difference in the back office that I need to educate myself in so that I can bring in people and start managing that a little bit better going in that next step. Otherwise, you know, I'm in big trouble if I don't. So I want to learn all of this so I can bring it forward in the business.
Thank you. And like I said, it's that contract management, and again, appreciate the idea of, hey, you built obviously a sufficient business, a sustainable business, but it's growing. But you still need that back office. You all are crafted in what you all do with the products and services, but sometimes all of the other intricate details of running a business, you know, here are some resources to take advantage of to help fill those gaps. So thanks, and welcome, Mike. Next, we have Marina.
Oh, hi. My name is Elda Mannion. From Garces Contractors. I just logged in from my phone today, otherwise you see my office name in there. But Elda Mannion, Garces Contractors. We do sewer, water, plumbing. We previously worked with CTA. However, we would like to keep updating any information, any knowledge never hurts nobody. So I would like to continue to get more information. And obviously the goal for me personally is how to be competitive and how to get to the point where we get paid in a timely manner, since we're so small and we don't have a line of credit as big as other companies that they can carry on their expenses and everything for a longer time. That is something that I will be interested on getting knowledge on. Thank you so much for your information today. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Next, we have Rich Ates.
Hey, how you doing today, everyone? My name is Richard Ates. I'm the owner of REA Masonry LLC. I attended the first series, which was the Green Line series, and I had an opportunity to work on the Green Line project. I'm currently have a small size project with the RPM, and we're currently bidding on 4 of the stations that's out right now. So we're helping put the some numbers together for the Walsh team, and I'm just looking to continue to educate myself. Like everyone said, just the project management aspect of it, the back office is like so important. I mean, coming from the field and then into a business owner position, it's just a lot of different things that you don't know, and that you got to always kind of critique yourself on. So I mean, just being able to participate in and continue to gain knowledge, I mean, I think that's important for me.
Thank you, Richard. And I appreciate you coming back. You and I, we chatted, and I said, hey, I know you attended the last one. I just want to make sure there's going to be a good use of your time. And so I appreciate your effort of saying, hey, the information that I got then, I was able to apply it to where the business was at that time. The business have grown. We're looking at different things. And so this information can apply a tad bit differently this go round. So welcome yet again, Richard.
Thank you.
Next, we have Simone Christine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Simone Christine. I own a construction company by the name of Throne LLC. I've recently been certified as an MWBE firm with the City of Chicago, and I'm excited to gain the knowledge that it takes to bid, win, and successfully and professionally work on future projects for CTA, not just as a one-time vendor, but a long-term vendor. So thank you for providing the wealth of information today.
Thank you and welcome. Next, we have Terry Johnson.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, I'm Terry Johnson. I am an architect and I have my firm for 17 years called Johnson Architecture. Recently, I just received my WBE certification, and my goal with that was to start branching out to do more public work projects and somehow get involved in the CTA and projects out at O'Hare and whatever the city has to offer. So it's all new to me, so I'm very excited you guys are having this opportunity to learn the ins and outs. So this is great. Thank you.
Awesome, and congratulations on the new WBE certification. Who'd you get certified with, the City of Chicago or with WeBank?
City of Chicago.
Awesome, congratulations.
Thank you.
Next we have Dupree Chapman. Dupree Chapman. Okay, we'll try again. Helen. Can I go back to Helen?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Great, great. Hi, everybody. My name's Helen Torres. I'm president of Helen Torres and Associates. We are a new structural engineering consulting firm. We started a couple months ago. I have applied for the City of Chicago MWBE. I'm Hispanic as well as being a woman. And looking forward to working on city projects.
Awesome, and thank you, Helen. One last try for Dupree Chapman. Awesome. And did I miss anyone else?
Herman and Dalcio here.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Herman and Dalcio.
Awesome. Herman, can you give me a brief intro, business description, and what do you plan to get out of the Small Business Series?
Absolutely. I work for a firm called Wendalco Enterprises that's been in existence for 10 years. This is the 5th firm that our CEO, David Dalcio, has founded. We found out working with Chicago, CTA, and all of its sister agencies over the last 39 years, me 27. It's good to constantly refresh yourself because things change. We have done work with CTA, and again, with all of the sister agencies, our primary focus is IT, managed services, staff augmentation, data warehousing, and logistics. So even though we might have, we've done work with CTA and we're good at what we do, it never hurts to constantly update ourselves, because if you live in Chicago, it changes. And if you can't ride the wave, that's a very difficult thing to do. So I like to stay upbeat and on top to make sure that I can ride that wave.
Awesome. I like that energy, Herman. Thank you and welcome.
Well, I'm on a sales call right now.
Anyone else? Final call for Dupree Chapman. All righty. Good group here. 21 participants today, just so that you know that you all are all in good company. Thanks again and welcome. As most of you know, CTA obviously is an agency. We have the largest contract in CTA's history going on right now, which is the Red Purple Modernization Project, the RPM. And we also have a host of other projects and opportunities for small businesses. But in addition to, we have a diversity program that's designed specifically to be a support to you all. Some of how we do that is through certifications and through our small business programs. So I heard some of you mention your M or WBE certification. CTA does and only accepts the DBE, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise certification, which I'll cover in a couple of slides in just a moment. But the CTA diversity program, we help you get certified. We try to increase our DBE certified firms to quite naturally increase the pipeline of our diverse firms of who we contract with, whether it's prime and or subcontract opportunities. We also have workforce initiatives, completely carved out department that supports our projects, supports our large and small firms to get workforce, to get folks on the jobs. We have specialized programming to get second chance individuals working, just a lot of support to make sure that not only the subs and primes are diverse, but also the workforce is a resemblance of that as well. We also have a mentor protege program. We understand the importance and the value of the experience of some of the larger prime contracts and how that may assist and help you all as smaller businesses build the capacity. And so we don't necessarily play matchmaker, right? To say here's mentor, here's protege, but we help facilitate relationships by hosting events like this, bring you all in the same environment, and obviously administering the program to make sure that you each as a mentor or protege benefit from its initiative. And then lastly, technical assistance. The objective of the diversity program is to make sure that you all have the capacity to perform, the capacity to bid, the capacity to win, and the capacity to actually perform on the contracts. And those all require totally 3 different buckets of resources. And here we're here to support on all 3. Contracting strategies, how do you find out about CTA contract opportunities? Using our buy-in plan online, using our, we have a new platform where we house our live solicitations. Market research, who has previously won these contracts? Who's working on this contract now? What's the diversity goal? All the free information that is privy to you because these are public contracts. So all of this free information can help you better prepare your bids, prepare your partnerships. It can help you better position yourself to, again, bid, win, or perform on these opportunities. We assist with marketing to the prime. How many of you all have capability statements? How many of you all are using our database to go in and find out who CTA prime contractors are? So that you can know who you should be building relationships with. Access to capital, as Juan Pablo mentioned, through our RPM Building Small Business Program, we have what's called, the program is built out to assist you with not only access to capital, but sourcing the capital. So in just a short year span, we've had debt placement of over $4 million to only about 13 or 14 different firms. So this is not only are we assisting with finding out where the dollars are, but we actually working with you to assess where you are, what type of capital do you need? Is it short-term debt, long-term debt, et cetera, to make sure, again, that you're better positioned to win, bid, and perform on those opportunities. And then lastly, education, which brings us here today, right? The Small Business Education Series. We want to make sure that you have the information that's needed to navigate through the CTA procurement opportunities and contracts. And not only, again, we want you to win and we want you to bid and win, but we want you to successfully sustain these contract opportunities. It's unfortunate when we have DBE opportunities and you get them, but then you can't perform well on those contracts. And I can say out of my several years in business space, it's really hard to come back after a bruised relationship of not being compliant or not performing well on a contract. It's really hard to get back in the game. So we want to make sure that you all are fully equipped with the necessary resources, whether it's through CTA or through our assist agencies, who are also our partners, to assist you with those things. We, again, do all of those things through either outreach events, through one-on-one consultations. So if you have very specific questions, you can reach out to myself or Chanel Harman and say, hey, I'm navigating, I'm doing XYZ, I'm having trouble here, or I'm trying to get in contact with this prime, I'm having trouble here. Again, we are here as an internal advocate for you to make sure that we hear our DBEs or our small businesses, and that we accept the challenges that you all are faced with. And so we try to knock down some of those barriers for you. We also have a Dba Advisory Committee. Our Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Advisory Committee is compiled of prime contractors, diverse, of course, and internal, and we discuss what barriers are you all faced with, what challenges, how can CTA help, how can we better position the contract opportunities to make it right-sized for the small businesses. So we're constantly and creatively thinking of things to make the opportunities more seamless for you all to obtain, so that we can ultimately increase our portfolio of diverse firms. And then I always encourage pre-bid meetings. For anything that you're remotely interested in doing business with CTA, as Ms. Fuller mentioned, that she may not have been ready at that time. But if you attend a pre-bid meeting on contracts that you were remotely bid on, in the event that you were 120% ready, in that room, you're going to see the prime contractors who's wanting to bid on those opportunities, other subcontractors who may be interested in teaming up with those primes. And then you get to hear and or ask firsthand to the user groups those very specific questions about the contracts. So I encourage, anytime that you see a pre-bid meeting, please, please, please attend. That's also how you kind of become in the know and build relationships with CTA and or our prime contractors. Earlier, I talked about the DBE certification. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to make mention of this so that if, for those of you who are not DBE certified, who may be eligible and who's interested in doing business with CTA, I strongly, strongly encourage you to get DBE certified. It is governed by the U.S. Department of Transportation. And ultimately, it is designed very similarly to the M or WBE certifications, is to increase the participation in CTA contracts. CTA and DBE certification is a hybrid of federal and local, hence the DBE certification. So because we receive federal funding, we oblige to that DBE certification. The business must be 51% owned and controlled. Remember, owned and controlled by a socially and economically disadvantaged business. And what I mean by socially and economically disadvantaged, socially, the 5 protected ethnic classes. For the socially disadvantaged, which is African American, women, Hispanic American, Native Americans, Asian Pacific, and Asian Pacific American and Asian American. And the economically disadvantaged comes with a personal net worth threshold of 1.32 million. That is to exclude your personal home, your personal home, but for the most part, the economic aspect comes in with your personal net worth being capped at 1.32 million, but also your your net grocery receipts over 3 years, or average grocery receipts over 3 years, cannot surpass 23.98 million. And that's also based on your NAICS code. So for each NAICS code, the North American Industrial Classification, NAICS codes, for each of those, there is what's called the SBA size standard, where the SBA maxes off a financial threshold for each NAICS code. So determining your NAICS code, for instance, construction is the higher NAICS code, and then it fluctuates from there. So just make sure, and then just a reminder, owner and controlled. So while I may be an owner, African-American female, I must also have the controls of the company, which means my bylaws and articles of incorporation should suggest that I have 51% control to make financial decisions, to make any decisions to the company. So just make sure you all are aware of that. So just so that you know, we are here to support you, CTA as an agency, the diversity team. And I know that you all are anxiously waiting to jump into the program. And so I'll just go over the house rules and then we'll dive right in. Kindly ask that you all keep your audio on mute. We encourage camera and video just to keep engagement. And just lesson learned today, I didn't go off the registration just because I wanted to see who actually attended class today. So I didn't go off of the registration. So it would help us if you wanted to change your name to who you wanted to be called on. It may help myself as well as the presenters correctly call your name. Please, please, please ask any questions as we go along. Use the chat box at the bottom kind of toolbar. There is an option that says, what does it say? Inbox, chat box. And so you can just put your questions there. We will address the questions at the middle of the presentation as well as the end of the presentation. But at any point throughout the presentation, please, please put your questions there so that you don't forget them. And this is virtual, so it's kind of different for all of us, but I do want us to be engaged and really take full advantage of these conversations and the presenters. And let's not overshadow the presenters. Each week we have industry leaders talking to us. So these are the primes that have proven themselves over years, who have had CTA contracts or who have worked very closely with CTA in the past, that obviously we can learn something from, that we can possibly partner a team with in the future. But ultimately, we want to take advantage of the information that we're receiving based on the experience in the industry. So, and our presentations will be shared after the workshop. And without further ado, we have Javed, from Clarke Construction, and he's gonna take us on Get On Board with Business Opportunities. And Javed, I'm gonna go ahead and try to pass you the control.
Okay. And while I do that, Jamie, thanks again. And first of all, can everybody hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Awesome. All right. One thing down. Good. Thanks again for joining here today. I am Javed Abudarabi. I'm the Business Development Manager for Clarke Construction. I was actually very pleased to hear a few familiar names here. Mr. Ates and Mr. Harmon, hello, good to see you again. They were actually former students from our small business training program, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today. And we're actually really happy to be leading off the program here in the first of the series. We've had the luxury and actually the opportunity to work with CTA on I guess now the fourth series since the Green Line Initiative for each of these summer sessions. So really happy to be a part of this. It's actually something that we are very much in tune with the growth of small businesses, taking emerging firms and helping them be able to identify the best opportunities, how to win those opportunities, and then how to execute the work. And so what you're going to get today is kind of a sampling of really the front end of that, how to really identify those best opportunities and what it takes to look out for what that best fit is. And then as you progress through the rest of this series with CTA, you're going to kind of get to learn a little bit more about the various elements of project management, the back of house efforts versus the on-site management efforts, and hopefully answer all of the questions that you've come up with and what you want to gain out of this program. The other sneak peek that you're getting today is a sample of Clarke's Strategic Partnership Program, which is our 6-month program that kicks off actually next week. And I will talk a little bit about how you can get on board, get enrolled into that program here for the 2020-21 semester. So a little housekeeping. Jamie, am I in control here now?
You give it a try and see if you can. No.
I don't think that I am, to be honest. Do you want to just navigate for me?
Got it. Not a problem.
Okay. So go back one slide. I want to give everybody my contact info. There's me, pre-COVID days with the suit and tie. And my email address, that's my direct line. I'm also happy to answer questions after this session, so feel free to reach out to me directly and email me. Would be happy to address any questions that you have regarding this content or anything else related to business development. A little bit of background again for me. August was 19 years with Clarke Construction here in Chicago. So I've, over my experience here, I've gotten the chance to really get some familiarity with the Chicago market, having a chance to get to know both the large business and the small business side of our industry here. We've had a chance to work with CTA on a number of projects, work both in the public sector and the private sector. Next slide, please. So what I'd like to talk a little bit about is give you the overview of our program. And the two main concepts about this whole front end understanding of what those best opportunities are is really to figure out what's the best delivery type, or what do these contract delivery mechanisms really mean, and then how to use that to identify the best opportunities. So that's going to be our agenda for this evening here. Next question, or next slide. Just a little bit about Clarke. Hopefully many of you are familiar with our company. This slide actually was about 3 years ago, but we've been now, this is now our 29th year here in Chicago. So, local builder, you've probably seen some of our signage on large scale, high-rise office buildings. We've done a lot of work over the year at McCormick Place, all the work at the hotel and the new DePaul Arena. But our work has really spread not just in downtown Chicago, but in a lot of the metropolitan area. And also, if you look at the next slide, we also have a national presence. And it's important to note this because our efforts here in Chicago really go about all of the markets that we work in. So throughout our corporate headquarters in DC, as well as our West Coast, Southern region, Texas, Pacific Northwest, our mentality as far as being a builder and helping small businesses grow to be in a position to really work with us and our peers is a really important way for all of us to be successful. So it's something that I take to heart personally, and many of my colleagues that are teaching the same material and content, it goes through the mentality, the nature of everybody within these regions. Next slide. Again, some of our signature work, many of you probably are familiar with 150 North Riverside, right along the river. And that was a high-rise office building we completed 3 years ago. Right across the riverbank on Wacker Drive, we're completing 110 North Wacker, another trophy office building. And if anybody's been by Union Station, you'll see the transformation that Union Station is undergoing just to the south where the parking garage used to be. We're now building a new tower there. So certainly the vertical work is something that we are very much in tune with and work with a lot of diverse subcontractors to achieve these monumental projects. And on the flip side, next slide, please. The transit side, the horizontal work is just as important for us. So we've had the opportunity to work with CTA on a number of substations, but the transit market in and of itself is something that we're very familiar with across the country. So we've worked with many similar agencies in a lot of the other metro markets. Next slide. So this kind of leads me to our strategic partnership program. We launched this, a little background, we launched this back in 2014, and that first class was in 14-15. And this was the first inaugural graduating class that we had. Since then, we have graduated 149 principals from small businesses here in Chicago. I think our numbers nationally are approaching 1,000 small business owners. And what the program entails is the following. So we actually are coming to the final home stretch of our enrollment period. This Friday is our final, is the deadline for our enrollment. Again, I'll give you details on how to get enrolled with that. We kick off our program next Wednesday on a morning orientation day, and classes then will commence on Wednesday the 23rd from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. All of our classes are held virtually for this semester. For those of you that were part of the program before, you remember that we hosted at the Chicago Urban League. Given today's environment, trying to make this as safe and as convenient as possible. So, but 6 to 9 p.m. every Wednesday night from the end of September through February, and then we graduate in March. And really, it's the time commitment that is important here, with no cost to the participants. This is the curriculum. What you see on the screen here is what we cover over this 6-month period. And it's a nice combination between the on-site management versus all of the overall project management, construction management fundamentals that go into our business today. Whether you're a large business or small business, these are all things that are applicable day in and day out. So we spend a lot of time to talk about these, and what you're getting today is just a very small sampling of one of these classes. Next slide. So I think we covered this. What I like to do when I'm in person with all of you is to ask, what type of company you have, and what I had in my notes here looked like a large majority of subcontractors and actual trade contractors, along with some professional service providers. And this is great because not only does the program help to give you that perspective from each trade and each function that you provide in our industry, but when it comes to contracting types, which is what we're going to get into here, it's important to understand how the owners, how the clients deliver their work. So this is what we're going to now dive into it. So understanding delivery types. There's really 5 key categories that the contracting delivery mechanisms fall under. And the first one is, if you take the next slide, traditional general contracting. This is going to be the most familiar to everybody. This is a case where the owner, let's take for example CTA, the client will have a direct contract with the general contractor. They'll also have a contract with the architect engineer. And in some cases, not all, but in some cases, they will have an owner's rep, or you can make here as a program manager. And in a larger scale project, you may have the necessity to have an owner's rep, which in essence is an extension of the client. So CTA may hire somebody like a Jacobs or an STV to help manage the owner's requirements on their team, but the contracts are held by the general contractor and the lead designer, the AE. From there, the general contractor holds all the subcontracts. So if you're a concrete firm, drywall, masonry, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, all of those subcontracts are held by the general contractor. So we, as the GC, as Clarke Construction, we hold the ultimate responsibility, the ultimate risk for all of the construction work to the client. And it's a single prime delivery method. As a subcontractor, then you hold a contract with Clarke, and then you may hold contracts with your suppliers or other vendors, equipment suppliers. So this is a very traditional method. Same on the design side. As a lead architect, you'll have a structural engineer, you'll have a civil engineer, maybe a mechanical, electrical, and you would hold those agreements with each of your subconsultants. So very straightforward, very basic. What you don't see here, a couple of drawbacks with this, the one element that I see as the biggest issue that we find with traditional general contracting is time. And the element of time is not exactly, this is not really a time favorable mechanism. And the reason is when the client hires the architect, typically that's what happens first. And the architect will start to design. And in essence, they are designing in a full development stage before that actually goes out to bid to the contractor. And you can see why that could be an issue, because if the client, say, has a budget of $10 million and what's drawn is a $15 million job and all the bids come in at 15 million, now we have a major problem. And ultimately, all of that time that was taken to bring that design to 100% has now been lost because there's going to be an element of redesign or a potential rebid. So what happens in this case is you will see this type of contracting method for all size projects. But I think it is very suitable for some of the smaller type and more simplistic types of projects, which have less complexity and thus maybe less room for error and potential constraints. So if we go to the next slide, actually here are some examples. These are all Clarke projects that we completed at Argonne National Laboratory, and I put these on here specifically because they're government projects. And the agencies that practice traditional general contracting the most are government agencies. Could be local, like City of Chicago, CTA, all the way up to the federal level. And there's terminology that you may be familiar with called a rip and read. And a rip and read is what you see on your bid alerts, where bid is due at 11 a.m. at City Hall, and by 11:05 the bids are ripped open and they've been read aloud, and you hear what who the winning bids are. That all falls under that traditional method. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. Now we get to construction management at risk, CM at risk. What's missing here? What's missing here is that box of the owner's rep. Because what happens here, again, this is very similar to what we just saw in the previous slide, but in the element of time is actually more in the client's favor. Because what typically happens in the CM at risk scenario, the construction manager is hired very early in the process, sometimes alongside the AE. You may see something where the architect is brought on board at a concept stage and then a CM is brought at that very same stage. So you have a CM alongside the client working through the design progression. And what's key about this is that CM not only is also the extension of the client for the construction services, but he's also advising on the budget and on the overall schedule itself and quality too. So you have somebody helping with the architect to progress the design and maintain those key budget elements. Same relationship goes, go back one, same relationship goes with the subcontractors and the subconsultants. All of those will eventually feed up into the CM, and then the CM will be the single point of contact to the client. And if you look at one of the examples here on the next slide, this is 150 North Riverside, which I talked to you about earlier. So this is a very common delivery mechanism for private clients. Because the private clients are so, they do have the ability to bring on a contractor or a CM on board with the expectation that this is the budget that I have. I need to make sure that I get this on the first try. We don't have the opportunity to go back out and rebid or to be over budget by X%. So typically, a lot of those selection mechanisms are done through either a best value or maybe even a qualification-based selection. This slide here, nope, go back to the CM agent, please. Yep. So CM agent. So this is actually I would say the opposite of the CM at risk. And what you see here is a unique mechanism that some agencies will provide in a manner where everybody is in that multiple prime role. And you'll hear that a lot. You'll hear a multi-prime. And where you actually will see this here locally in our region is through the CDB, the Capital Development Board, State of Illinois. Those of you that do work with the State of Illinois will know that they have several ways that they deliver projects, and this is one of their primary ways of doing it, where the owner essentially holds all the contracts. The owner will hold an owner's rep. They will also hold what they call protected subs, like mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, and in many times other major subcontracts like maybe structural steel or concrete. And then all of the general trades will then be in their own bucket. And then they will have a separate architect engineer, and then they would have all, so everybody feeds right up to the client. Why is this an advantage? Well, there's a perception that this would be the most economical way to do it without having layers of fee and overhead on top of each other. But the problem with this is that subcontractors don't have accountability. And what I mean by this is this: as a general contractor, it is imperative to me to be at risk and be responsible for the performance of the project from a quality and a schedule standpoint. And if there isn't that single entity, that general contractor that holds that responsibility, it is very tough to be able to deliver that as just a non-at-risk entity to the client. And sometimes it's a little confusing, and hopefully everybody understands the differentiation between an agent or an owner's rep and this multi-prime delivery method versus that single prime method. So if you see so far, everything ties into that schedule and that cost element. And in this case, the schedule element is very challenging. And unfortunately, in many multi-prime contracting scenarios, you see a lot of contention. You see a lot of issues with the schedule being met. So the nice thing about the Capital Development Board, I'm not trying to pick on them, they've actually been able to progress into more single prime and design build and other unique delivery methods to avoid the issues that the CM agent or multi-prime delivery method brings. So next slide. Design build. So personally, and from our standpoint, this is one of our favorites, because although from a risk standpoint, this is the highest risk element, because now we have not only the construction risk, but we also have the design risk that we are responsible for. The client gets a one-stop shop on ultimately everything related to the project, and all of that burden falls on the design builder, or as the general contractor acting as the design builder. And in this scenario, same as before, all of the subcontractors will have a direct contract with the GC, with Clarke, but so does the architect engineer. And the architect may also choose to hold all the subconsultant agreements, or the subconsultants could also feed up to the design builder. So on the design side, there's more flexibility there. But the key thing here is everything feeds up into that single entity at the prime level. Now, what's the advantage of this? There's a significant time and budget advantage, because from the time standpoint, we're able to actually release packages a lot earlier than having to wait for everything to be designed completely before it goes out to bid and before we procure that work. So you may see, I heard there were deep foundations, I know there's concrete contractors here, so we may be able to actually put out a bid package for the deep foundations, for the concrete, for the earthwork, site utilities, well in advance before paint colors and ceiling tiles and floor finishes are ever even designed. Whereas in the traditional sense, all of that has to be 100% complete before it goes out to bid. So you can see the difference in the time standpoint. And similar to the construction management approach, we are alongside the client and the architect, working through managing, coordinating all of the collaboration elements of the budget, the quality of the work, the program, the vision that the client has, and have that feed all the way through into the design. And we're doing that side by side. So this is a very advantageous mechanism. And I guess the reason that you don't see it much is because it is a very high resource demanding delivery method. So the person who is in that GC spot really has to be able to have not only the team, but the capacity to be able to manage all of that risk. But this is a very favorable one. All of the work at McCormick Place, if you show the next slide, please. All the work that we did at McCormick Place over the last really 2 decades has all been delivered by design build. And you're talking about over $2 billion worth of work. And this is through the Metropolitan Peer Authority. The federal government actually, in addition to their traditional general contracting mechanism, they also do design build quite a bit. The Navy does that quite a bit. The Army Corps of Engineers does that. So we are starting to see that quite a bit more. And fortunately, we do see that with the state of Illinois. Those of you on RPM is a great example of a design build project. So think of how long the process would take if CTA did that in a traditional sense, where everything had to be fully designed for that, $1 billion plus project before it went out to bid. But now you're engaged much earlier, and this is a very, very nice way of being able to engage the community without having a full design complete. So a lot of advantages with design build. That's my shameless plug for promoting design build. Lastly, I'd say this is probably the more lesser known alternative delivery methods, but you will hear about them every so often. And that's on the left, you'll see a public-private partnership. And what's unique about a P3 is you see on the cycle there, at the top you have design, at 2 o'clock you have build, but then at 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 10 o'clock, you have finance, operate, and maintain. So in the truest sense, you have an entity that is not only providing a design build scenario to a public agency, but you have this private entity that's also helping to bring the financing and the post-construction operations and maintenance to the facility, to the whole program. Some good examples of this. Here locally, actually not too long ago, last year, UIC, University of Illinois Health, they had an ambulatory care facility that was bid as a P3, where there was a private developer, essentially, who helped bring private money to the public agency, to the Illinois Health, University of Illinois Health System, along with an architect and a contractor to help bring that whole cycle of services into play. This was actually something that was adopted in the United States. It started in, I believe, Europe and Canada have done quite a bit of this. And there are a lot of firms that will bring national and global expertise into this. But you'll see this a lot on social infrastructure, higher education, healthcare, and even infrastructure from a civil and transportation standpoint. On the right, you'll see, one more. Stay on that one real quick. I won't spend too much time on IPD. This is integrated project delivery. This is where you would see a tri-party agreement between the client, contractor, and the designer. This is very rare. You will see integrated delivery used loosely as a term of early engagement, but very rarely do you see a tri-party agreement where all three entities are signing that same document. It's been used on some healthcare systems, but in the end, I think most of the delivery methods that all of us will encounter will fall into one of the early ones that I just described. So what's the methodology? So I talked earlier about the open bid, and an open bid is predominantly associated with that first delivery mechanism that I spoke about, being the traditional GC. So again, I'll say, those of you that are familiar with bidding with the city, you see their bid alert come out. You have 3, 4, 5 weeks to bid a project, and on bid day, you walk your bid over to, well, back in the older days, I think everything is pretty much now electronic, but you would deliver your bid to City Hall, sit there in the bid room, and then they would open the bids and read them out loud, and everybody knows within 5-10 minutes of how they fared, how they compared with everybody else. There is a review period afterwards, so that apparent low, because there is paperwork and forms that need to be validated and verified for legitimacy and accuracy. But ultimately, that rip and read open bid scenario is reserved for that traditional GC method and typically done in a public format. All of those other methods, though, whether it's CM at risk, agent, design build, or any alternative delivery, you will see them in some variation of a closed bid, and it could be some combination of either an RFQ, RFP, and a best value, or even a negotiated scenario. And what those mean are RFQ, request for qualifications, which typically is based on purely your qualifications and expertise, non-cost, no price. An RFP, which in most cases is a combination of both. There's a technical element and a cost element. A best value, which could be a combined two-step RFQ to an RFP. So in many cases, when you see best value, you will see an open RFQ, and then the client will shortlist that RFQ to the most qualified, 3 or 4 or 5 firms, and then move on to stage 2 RFP, and all of that whole process is all weighted in a best value format. And then lastly, ultimately the position that we all want to be in is to hopefully be in a position to negotiate work with our client and be that single preferred provider of construction services to our clients. So this is kind of the overview, the universe of the bidding methodology. So what's the best for me? This is a very small list, but it pretty much captures some of the most important factors that you as a sub, you as an architect, you as a GC, small business or large, these are things that I look at every day when I try to consider what the best projects are for me to pursue. And as a business owner, as a principal of a company, you really want to make sure that you spend time to look and figure out, of these factors, how many boxes can I check? And I'll go through a few of these here. Project value, again, this, to me, where your capacity, where your sweet spot is. And you don't want to bid on something that is going to, get you out ahead of your skis. So the project value, is that something that I'm comfortable with? What's the schedule of the work? Does it fit the timing of the work that I already have in place? How many competitors are there? Am I facing 2 or am I facing 12? That makes a big difference as to how aggressive you will have to be to chase that work. What's the type of work? Are you a transit builder and you're looking to build an apartment building? Are you in residential looking to build a hospital? At some point, the experience of your work should align with the type of work that you're pursuing. It's good to be well-rounded, but a common misconception is when we go to outreach and networking events, when we talk with small businesses, what type of work do you do? The answer that I never want to hear is, I do everything. Curtis and Richard, you can attest to that. Everybody has a niche, has a suite of services that you provide. And hopefully you are very, very skilled at that at that trade set. But what you don't want to say is, I can do everything for everybody. So these will help kind of focus your efforts as to the type of scope and the type of work that is best suited for you. Because what you're best suited for may not be the same as the next person. Who's the owner? Who's the client? Does that owner have a good track record of work? Is there a good pipeline for work? Does that have a good track record of payment? What's the reputation of that owner? Do you have familiarity with that client? Maybe it's a first-time client, so you want to do some research about that client, about that owner. Is the job funded? Hate to go through a whole bid exercise, put together all the resources, get everything teed up, and then for that project to get canceled because there's no funding. And unfortunately, in today's environment, funding is a major issue for government work, and especially on the private side, trying to get equity into projects. So something that you definitely want to consider when you're looking at the work. Do you have the resources to bid that job? Do you have the resources from both an estimating standpoint and an execution standpoint? So you want to think about who you have available and can you commit them to put a bid together. Logistics and location, those go hand in hand. Is this a downtown Chicago project or are you out in the suburbs? Are you close to the home office or do you have to travel? So very important, some basic things to consider there. Procurement method goes right into what I just described with those delivery methods. And I think that a lot of times is a decision that the general contractor has to make on whether it's favorable for them and how much risk they have to take in. Is there any technical criteria, any prerequisites that the owner is demanding. Take railroad work. There's a lot of times safety requirements and technical criteria, minimum prerequisites that have to be met in order to be able to perform on that project. Do you already have that? And what's it going to take in order to get it if you don't? Financial capacity ties into that project value. Do you have the bonding and the insurance coverage to be able to tackle the work that's being offered? And then the last one I'd want to leave you with here is teaming. If there's any elements of that factor list, of that checklist that you feel that you're lacking, but you feel that you could bring something to the table that others don't, this is a great opportunity to team, joint venture, bring or work with a mentor protege. So all of these things really should go into your thought process when you're considering what type of project it is that you are looking at and want to bid. This is probably a good place to stop with any questions. So Jamie, I don't know if anything's on the chat board so far.
Thank you, Javed. We did just have one question who asked if you can have if you have more than one mentor protege program under the Department of Transportation. So for instance, if you have one with Tollway and then another with CTA, was that permissible? And the answer is yes, you can have more than one mentor protege program under the US DOT. That was all we had in the chat. However, again, we encourage some participation. If you have any questions on anything that has been mentioned thus far or anything to come, feel free to jot it in the chat or
we'll have other opportunities here and good stopping points, but I wanted to at least cover we covered a lot of ground here in this first segment. So I just wanted to make sure it didn't, there wasn't any confusion.
No, Javi, good information. I think, just understanding the type of bids, how they're organized, where we fit in, right? I think was all helpful information. I hope that the participants took note of that, right? Where do you fit into this equation? Because then that's when you position yourself to know who you should be marketing to, right? Now, all the time, should you be racing to CTA? Yes, we're here. Yes, we have the contract. But based on Javid's presentation, if it's a design build and you're going to be a subconsultant or subcontractor, then you need to vet for that prime contractor before you jump to the owner. So understanding where you are, where you position on that kind of grid can kind of help you better position who you're marketing to and who you're going after contracts for.
And that actually is a good segue to the next series of slides here, Jamie. So thanks. And it ties back into these delivery mechanisms. When you look at a flow chart, when you look at this kind of process flow from concept to completion, in each mechanism, in each delivery method, we all, as a GC, as a sub, as an architect, we all fall into a specific, piece of that puzzle, piece of that pie. And it's important to know how early or how late you may fall into that role. And these next series of slides will kind of show that. So in that traditional GC role, again, this is going to be 100% design. It's a lump sum bid. It's a full price, full cost bid. When you hear plans and specs, you take the drawings, you bid the work as you see it, and you put a price to it. And your work starts on bid day, and it ends on the day that you finish the job, and including any warranty period as well. But what's key is in this entire flow chart, when you look at that very first day of concept, when that owner started to plan the job, your engagement, unfortunately, in the traditional contractor role really doesn't happen until that design development is complete. So as the architect, you are, one arrow to the left, you are fully enrolled in that design development stage. But unfortunately, the owner may not have the benefit of having that budgeting and that pre-construction with the expertise of the contractor by his side. So while this is a very structured and very rigid process, that's where the disadvantage falls. When you look at the next example, next slide, in that design, build, and CM risk role that we talked about, it's that whole element of pre-construction that we've all heard about, that we all know. Your involvement during pre-construction becomes much more significant. Could be as early as the very start of the planning and concept stage, but as the job progresses down that continuum, especially during design development, the GC, the CM is right there with you, and you as the subcontractor will be alongside the contractor as well, especially in those early key roles. We see it a lot with MEP. You may have heard the words design assist. And what design assist means is very similar to design build, only difference being that as a design assist role, you don't have to stamp drawings. You're not responsible for being the engineer of record. In the design build role, yes, you are. So just a very unique distinguishing factor between those two. But the whole purpose of in that role, you have to be prepared to provide budgeting feedback, be prepared to talk about scheduling and logistics if it's a logistically complex project, to be able to provide that feedback early in the job so that there's no surprises on bid day. At that point, you're locking in a price and you're off and running out in the field. And lastly, next example, in that P3 scenario, that alternative delivery method, you could have a hand in almost every segment. And it all depends on what your core services are. Some of you were in construction management. I noted that we had some architects in the room. I noted that we had some, real estate consulting. So this is the nice part about this delivery mechanism, even though it's not common, every role plays an important part, and ultimately you all play under one team, which is pretty incredible. And to manage all of that work takes a lot of resources and a lot of commitment. But this is the whole continuum of really focusing on just your construction operations versus having engagement throughout that whole process. So one of the things I'll leave you with, go to the next slide. And in our SPP class, what we talk about, next slide, please. We will talk about this a lot more, and it's an interactive exercise that we do, but I wanted to show this on the screen, is for all of you, whether you're a subcontractor, whether you're an architect, whatever your core business is, I want you to think about what other services I can provide beyond my core business, beyond that single arrow. So if I'm more, and I'll give you a good example. If I'm a mechanical engineer and I'm focused on providing HVAC services throughout the course of construction, what other things could I branch out into? Well, certainly I think of the front end, the pre-construction side, getting early engagement into, you see on the second row, left side, pre-construction. There's a lot of benefit to talking about what type of mechanical systems are most efficient. What's the pricing between equipment suppliers? Piping routing. So there's a lot that you can do early on before anything really goes on to those prints. And then on the flip side, there's maintenance. Every building has ongoing maintenance, whether you're mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and then even on finishes. You can have a lot of maintenance contracts. And in many cases, those maintenance contracts could prove to be more profitable. So this is really a challenge to think about what other elements of the construction market can I use my resources on to expand my business into. So something good to take away here. Before I jump here into our second part, any questions or comments based on this first segment of understanding the delivery mechanisms and where you fall into that role? Jamie, do we have anybody with any questions so far?
Yes, just if the presentation will be made available, we will share it at the end, the next day of every presentation.
Yes.
Of every class period.
Great. Okay, so moving on to identifying opportunities. So I think many of you talked about looking to do business. How do I do business with CTA? How do I do business with any agency? How do I do business with other contractors? So this is kind of the crash course on some of the key things to consider. So if we go right into it here. Defining your strategy. I hope everybody knows the difference between a mission statement and a vision. And you can click on, you can show the whole slide here. In our SBP course, we spend a lot of time on helping to build a mission statement and a vision statement, but this is kind of the snapshot. This is the summary. And before you ever start to figure out, all right, I'm going to start going and I'm going to bid 3 jobs a month, and this is my business plan. You got to step back and understand what's my mission and my vision for the future. And hopefully everybody at this point with your businesses already have a mission statement defined and have a vision on where you're going. So I won't spend too much time. I mean, this could be a course in and of itself, but important to just take a step back and have that plan in your mind before you move forward. So assuming we're all there, we're all at that point, we can take that next step. Next slide. And this is my graphic way of saying you don't want to be too narrow focused and you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You want to figure out what volume of work and what types of work are going to be the best fit to promote the most growth for your company. And we spend a lot of time to talk about what that means and how you best identify that. I give a good example of where, you know, if I'm only going to chase work in DuPage County for residential projects between $100,000 and $1 million, and they have to be less than 3 stories. I mean, you can kind of see that my filters are getting very, very, very tight. And at some point, there just may not be enough of that type of work to go around. Now, I'm also not saying that I'm going to be in residential, I'm going to be in commercial, I'm going to be in healthcare, I'm going to be in transportation, I'm going to be in industrial, and I'm going to be in nuclear. I mean, that's just way too broad and requires skill sets all unique to each. So this is a very broad way of saying, figure out what that sweet spot is for you. And a lot of that ties into that checklist that I shared earlier of all of the various factors. And the more boxes that you can check on the type of that project, the better that project's going to be for you. So going into the next one, next slide. I look at 4 ways to figure out how to gain a competitive advantage, but this also ties into the owner's priorities. For every job, you have to really understand what's the priority of the owner. And ultimately, if somebody else figures that out better, they're going to get a competitive advantage on you. And it comes down to cost. Everybody knows how important cost is, no matter what market you're in, but it may not be the priority in all cases. But cost, certainly quality. Nobody wants an inferior product, but the levels of quality certainly will differ based on the product type. Nobody wants to be late. So, but in many cases, speed to delivery may be more critical than the other elements. And then the flexibility. And what I mean by flexibility is how easily adaptable, or how can you customize that to fit the needs of the owner. And I'll give a very, very basic example in real life. If you're in the market to go buy a luxury car, we're gonna go buy a Lamborghini tomorrow. What's going to be the most important thing that we're thinking of among these 4? And I hope the answer for you is quality. I mean, you're thinking about that quality. You don't want a cheap, there's no such thing in my mind as a cheap Lamborghini. So that buyer is thinking first and foremost of quality. And it's likely that cost is probably not too much of an issue. And, you know, schedule is probably not really important to them. I would say flexibility is probably the second most, because when I think of flexibility, I think of, all right, well, I want a specific type of leather seats. I want the top of the line technology in the vehicle. I want all these bells and whistles and characteristics that I want customized to my very rare car. So to me, in this scenario, cost and schedule end up being pretty low to that buyer. versus somebody who is going to buy a fleet of cargo vans. They're looking for, give me the best price. I want the most economical price, and I need it now for the work that I'm doing. Not saying that quality is going to be, bad, but cargo van versus a Lamborghini, I think we know, that what those levels of quality are. And there's really not much flexibility in this. I want it to take me from point A to point B, and I need to be able to store cargo. So it's a very basic way of looking at how to prioritize this, because that same buyer who wants to go buy the Lamborghini may turn around and say, for my business, I don't need a Lamborghini. For my business, I need several cargo vans. All right, so let's take that mindset and apply it to our work here. So next slide, please. This is an exercise that we do in class. It's better if we were all in person, but we can't. So I'm going to do my best here to walk us through in this scenario. So take an example. Let's say CTA is looking to build a new transit station, and the project is in a traditional general contracting delivery method. It's going to be 100% designed. It's plans and specs. So the drawings are designed. You're going to bid it lump sum, open bid, rip and read. The way to win the job, you hopefully you're low on bid day. It's a fixed budget. The budget's already been determined. There's local funding in place. There is a phased milestone. So what that means is there's interim milestones all the way up to completion. And at each stage, there's penalties if you're late. January 1st is the substantial completion date. It's got a very complex logistics and phasing plan, and all of the design and engineering standards have been established. So what I'd like for everyone to do, let's see if we can make this happen. I'm curious to see in the chat if everybody can maybe put in order from most important to least what you think is going to be the order of priority. So if we go to the next slide here, again, quality, cost, delivery, and flexibility. Those are your 4 categories. So maybe let's make this simplest. I'd like to know, what do you think is the most important? So of those 4, pick what you think is the most important. And let's put the slide back on that shows the summary of that one, the actual example. Cost, quality, schedule, flexibility. And put in the chat which one you think is the most important.
Javed, we have a couple of, are you ready for it, Javed?
Sure.
For some of the answers? We have a couple that suggests the schedule. We have a couple that says the cost, one that suggests the quality.
Okay, yep, I'm seeing them come through here.
Okay.
All right. So I'm seeing the 2 most popular answers, it looks like, are schedule and cost as far as important. So cost and delivery, cost and schedule, that's what I'm seeing. I think it's pretty even, neck and neck between those 2. So it looks like, I think it's safe to say that quality and flexibility seem to be a little bit lower. I don't think anybody put flexibility on there, so I'll go ahead and say everybody is correct on flexibility being lowest. And here's the reasoning behind that. This is 100% design. There is no movement. You're bidding exactly what you're seeing on the drawings. And the fact that there's already on that last bullet there, established design and engineering standards, CTA is not looking to deviate from what they have already established that works. And this makes a lot of sense. So in this case, that reason for flexibility just isn't there. Not to say that at some point couldn't be important, but that's not what we're looking for in this case. Okay. Looks like one person put quality in there. And I'll go ahead and say quality is not the priority here. Again, not to say that quality is not important, because At the end of the day, you have to have a functioning station that meets all the standards, but you know, we don't have gold-plated, you know, handrails. You know, if we were building a, you know, $50 million mansion for, you know, for Bill Gates, maybe he wants his gold-plated handrails. But this is not the case here. So in this case, the quality, it's more about durability. It's more about functionality. We're not looking for luxury in this case. So the quality is almost really implied within the design itself. It's already there. It's not think of it this way. Quality is not a factor of you winning the job. It's going to be a factor of how you perform. But remember, we're trying to figure out what's the most important thing to deliver here to win this project, to gain that competitive advantage. So I'm going to put quality as third. So now to schedule and the cost. Could I get one volunteer to explain to me why schedule is the most important, please?
Hello, can I speak?
Yes, Jermaine.
All right. Scheduling is the most important because this is a part of the plans. This is something that's already worked out between the owner and their representatives and whomever the GC is going to be. So there's milestones that come along with scheduling, and it's the organization. Scheduling is like the organization of the project. How it's planned to start, how it's planned to go through its phases, how it's planned to like reach certain milestones, and how it's planned to end as far as punch lists and things, and to turn over the project to the new owner. All that's effective by using scheduling. I don't think that you can really meet your goals if you don't really set goals, if you will.
Thank you, Jermaine. Mike, did you have something?
Every time your schedule changes, the longer the project goes out, the more your costs that the GC will incur on that project. And that's not a good thing when the GC is losing money every time a schedule changes. It becomes an unknown. It's very scary.
Yeah. All of those factors are accurate. I'd like to now hear from one or two volunteers who think the cost is the top priority here.
Well, I think the cost is the top priority because it's stating right here that we got a fixed budget. So I mean, we might already have a certain amount of money that we're working with, and we got to tailor our schedule to fit that budget. I mean, you know, we got to be able to know what we can do and what we can't do.
Sorry.
Like I'm saying, I'm just thinking that, you know, the budget is important right now because, I mean, when I'm bidding a project, I'm looking at how I'm breaking my project down, my production rates, and I'm building the schedule as I go according to my cost. So my cost is giving me my schedule as I go. So we got to know what we can include in the cost in order to create the schedule.
Right. Good point. Anybody else? Any comments on cost?
Cost is the most important because as a professional, when you accept the contract, the schedule is given by the GC, and as a professional, you're supposed to be able to know that by looking at what you bid on the firm fixed price that you gave them, that you're going to be able to work that schedule.
Okay, so each of you made very accurate points, and you're both right. There's one distinguishing factor, though, between those two that is going to be the deciding factor to win the job. Okay, I heard, and everything that you talked about throughout the life of the project holds true. But which one do you think is going to win you the work, is going to win you this project based on the criteria?
Scheduling.
Scheduling.
Plans and specs, lump sum, open bid. What does an open bid
I'm going
mean?
to step in here as someone who worked for the CTA. I'm going to tell you that schedule is everything. They need it done when they need it done.
They do.
They could tell you 10 minutes from now that you're going to be there in 2 hours.
And you better be there in 2 hours.
You better be there. I'm on the same job. He's right.
Yeah, I mean, we're all working RPM. We ran Ravenswood, the closures last year. and early this year. And yeah, that's it. When you shut a couple miles of rail line down, it's got to get back up and running when it's supposed to.
And I'm sorry, who's that speaking?
That's Ron with AMS.
Ron, thank you.
You're absolutely, nothing that you said there is incorrect, Ron. I'm going to give you guys the answer. And the answer, Mr. Aites, you were correct. The answer here is cost. Here's why. This scenario is, what is it going to take for you to win this project? What is the answer as far as on bid day, what wins you the project? Everything that you described is what happens immediately after. If you're not performing, if you don't meet those scheduled deadlines, if you don't meet that phased milestone schedule, if you're not out there ready to respond, you will suffer, and it will be severe penalties from a cost standpoint. So absolutely right. However, on bid day in this format, if it's a rip and read, if it's that open bid where you're delivering your bid and at 11 a.m. you're sitting there in CTA's headquarters and they're opening up bids, if you are not the apparent low, you don't, assuming that all the paperwork's in order, you didn't win that job. This is an example of a purely price-driven cost proposal. Now, the quality, the schedule, and the cost, yes, you still have to perform. You still have to deliver the project. There's no doubt about that. Whether you have the $2 billion RPM contract or you have a $200,000 piece of a subcontracting contract with the team. So the point of this exercise is to get you to understand what is that bid, what is that delivery method. Now, if this was an RFP, okay, if this was something where, is classified as a best value proposal and it's a closed bid where it's not just the numbers rule, you have to look at, and many times a schedule is required. Many times you have to demonstrate, especially as the GC. I guarantee you that the Walsh team had to put together a very detailed schedule to demonstrate they can deliver this project in the parameters that CTA expects. And they have a team to be able to do that. And they have the capacity to do that. And on any project that has a schedule requirement, you're going to have to demonstrate that. But if it is something that, again, these keywords, lump sum, open bid, rip and read, 100% design, when those are the key words, that's really what you want to focus on and make sure that those schedule requirements have a dollar value associated with it. So let me point out, if you think that it's going to be a challenge to meet the January 1st completion date with one crew, you better price a second crew in there. You better price the time and the resources that it's going to take to get to that January 1st deadline. Because if you don't, then you did not meet the schedule and you're costing money to your business. So I hope that makes sense to everybody, that this example is not about what's most important for the project in its entirety. We're focusing on how to win the work, identify the project, what's that plan to win that work. And specifically for this case, it's a cost-driven proposal, which in many cases, you will still see that. Those other mechanisms that I talked about, again, going back to CM at risk, going back to design build, especially design build. RPM is design build. So RPM is not just focused on cost, but very schedule driven, very quality driven. So that's a combination of all those factors, and it takes a little bit more to understand. If you're a sub, you want to talk to your GC and figure out, hey, ask the question, what's the priority here? What do I need to focus my efforts on? If you're the GC, ask the client, what's your priority? What do I need to really deliver on in order to guarantee that I'm your contractor, I'm your guy, I'm your builder? So I hope that makes sense. Thank you for the comments here. Do you have any questions on what I just described?
I do, Javed. I have a question. When does the low bid not matter? When does the low bid not matter?
In the scenario that I described as far as best value. So when it's not an open bid, okay? When it's not an open bid, so in the majority of the time, you have open or closed. When it's not an open bid, you will need to really focus on those other factors. And those other factors could be a combination of many things. We've talked about schedule already. You know, in many cases, you may have to demonstrate that you have experience in that product type. Those of you who have responded to proposals will see you need to submit relevant projects over the last 5 years or 10 years. So that goes back to my example of if you're a residential builder and you're looking to build your first hospital, you may be at a disadvantage versus somebody who's already built that similar product type. Other things to look at would be your quality control plan. So that goes back into the QC. So that's something that CTA does look at. If CTA is looking at RFQ or an RFP, you will have to submit a quality plan. You will have to submit a safety plan to demonstrate that, okay, maybe you can get to the low number, but are you a safe contractor? What's your EMR? What's your experience modification rate? Hopefully it's below 1. Industry standard is 1.0. They'll look at resumes. Who's your project manager? If you come in for an interview, you'll want to bring in your project manager and your superintendent that's going to be on the job. Because while the overall message from maybe the top person in the organization, or the principal of the company is important, who's the one actually building the work on site, interacting with the client? And that could be the lead PM, that could be the lead superintendent. So what are their credentials? These are all things that in a best value scenario, cost will be a factor, but it may not be the whole picture. Does that answer the question, hopefully?
I think so. Thank you, Javed, for that clarification.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And to hopefully I know Richard Dates, you're familiar with this concept, and you've seen this exercise before, but hopefully it makes sense for you and hopefully makes sense for the other subcontractors that commented. Mike, I know you commented. Ron, I know you commented. Jermaine, you commented. So hopefully that clarification between the strategy on bid day versus the strategy for the project sometimes needs to really focus on that single element that's going to win you that bid, knowing that you still have to deliver on all those elements. So with that, we can move to the next slide here. This was the summary of that. Other things to consider when you're looking to gain that competitive advantage come with how are you going to actually deliver your product? What means and what methods are you going to deliver? And does that give you an advantage? You know, in the trade market, we've had so many advancements in technology, automation. You know, you hear things these days as prefabrication, and a lot of times some of it ends up being proprietary. So, you know, you may have relationships with a certain product vendor. You may have manufacturing expertise, all the things that shape who you are as a company and shape the way that you deliver a project. Maybe figure out if those means and methods provide some sort of advantage for you that you could take to the bid. So, you know, in the masonry case, I know there's a lot of automation in the way, you know, brick is laid, CMU is laid. So, you know, there you could look at, you know, do I have an innovative means of actually delivering higher production or a more efficient way of actually placing my work in the field? Specialized expertise. I mean, I think of, you know, in that case of the, you know, project management and field management, if you have a very specialized project and you have experience in that complex type of product, then you may want to showcase that. You definitely want to be able to, if you have the way to showcase your project management and your field management expertise, you want to be able to show that to the client. So think about what makes you stand out over the competition. That's a very, very specific way of saying that. What's your differentiator? You can go to the next slide. At the end of the day, I mean, this is kind of obvious, but it's what we all want to strive for, to gain that customer loyalty. Because what happens is if you perform well, and if you're able to serve the client you are now in pole position to be able to do their next project. Now, in a public setting, there are rules and guidelines that need to be, providing opportunities to the community at large. What you don't want to do is not perform and not be able to, and be, barred from doing business with a certain agency, which I would hope nobody is in that position. But it all comes down to your ability to perform and serve that client and make sure that you are in a position, public or private, to better serve them the next time and to be in that repeat business scenario. Next slide. I think we all know what the environment is today. While there is work happening, our market certainly has taken a dip given COVID, given, social unrest, given the political climate. I mean, there's just a lot of volatility in our market today, and that's affecting everybody. That's not just construction. I think we're fortunate in our construction industry that we may not have had the extreme impact that some of the other markets in our country have suffered. But at the end of the day, we have to really understand, what's this happening to transportation? What's this happening to residential work, commercial work, aviation? And do I, as a business leader, do I need to go back to that value chain analysis that I showed earlier and figure out how do I expand and touch more roles and be able to be in a market and do my core business, but not be so narrow-minded or narrowly focused on just that one thing? How do I become more competitive? One of the things that I would also recommend is on bids, ask for a debrief. Whether it's to a GC, whether it's to the client directly, it's always important to understand, give me some feedback on what I just submitted. If you're successful, well, fantastic, that's great. But for every one award that's made, unfortunately, there are a number of unsuccessful proposers. So it's good for us to understand, all right, what is it that I did? What is it that I performed strongly on, but where did I fall short? And learn from those lessons and then go back and be able to apply that in the future. So kind of in wrapping up here, how do I find out about new projects, right? So I look at it personally in three categories: the informational resources, outreach and networking, similar to what we're doing today, and building on your client relationships. So I'll quickly go through these. We spend a lot more time with this in our SPP class, but go to the next slide. The informational resources, look, CTA, City of Chicago, all the sister agencies. I hope by this time everybody is familiar with DPS alerts, the buying plan, the vendor fair that's hosted every year. These are great ways to enroll, register, and get it all automated and get all these alerts sent to you, and to know where opportunities are coming up for the city, for CTA, and all the agencies that work with the government here locally. So there's plenty of resources online to look at. This is just some of the screenshots. Department of Aviation, everybody knows about the O'Hare 21 work. There's a lot of information on how to do business with CDA, and I know they host regular outreach events with the construction managers that are out there. I think CTA is next slide here. Yeah, this is actually an old snapshot of the CTA website, but every single one of these agencies, you can actually see it on the screen here: CTA, Park District, city colleges, public schools, PBC. Every single one of them has a procurement information tab where you can go on and register with them individually, get all their bid alerts. It's whether you're a large business or small, this is imperative. Next slide. Again, contract opportunities with CTA. I think this has all been revamped on CTA's website. So look for these keywords: doing business with, procurement information, current opportunities. Jamie talked about this earlier. Attend those pre-bid meetings, attend those outreach sessions, because in many cases, a lot of that information is coming out right before that bid is going to be posted. So you want to be able to prepare in advance and get those automated alerts so you can get those in your inbox, and then you can start to filter through and figure out which ones are the best fit. Similarly, again, outreach and networking. I talked about all of these. Owner-led versus contractor-led. So when I think of owner-led, again, I think of CTA and sessions like this. When I think of contractor-led, that's Clarke hosting a dedicated session for a specific project that we may be involved in. We could be bidding it, or it might be a project that we've already won, and we want to get out to the community and promote participation. Here's an example of some of the flyers that we posted several years ago when we were just even before we started any work at McCormick Place for the hotel and the DePaul Arena. So we had all of our project partners there, and we brought sets of plans, hosted a day-long session where every sub that was interested could come out and talk to our estimating team. And I mean, it's just a good way to really get a feel for what that project is, and make that decision. Am I going to bid? Am I going to bid as a first-tier sub? Am I going to partner with somebody? So these are all decisions that you're going to want to make. I think many of you are going through that with RPM currently, and it's a great way to get familiarized with the project before the bid actually comes out. Next slide. I'm going to wrap up with this. I think this is my last slide here. So this, to me, if you take anything away from what I talked about, it's the client relationship. This is what we strive for. I'll say it again. Be persistent in your pursuit, okay? This is a reality that I face. I'm the business development manager. I'm on the front line of trying to find opportunities for Clarke. We will all be unsuccessful. Let me say this properly. We will unfortunately lose more opportunities than we will win. I mean, it's just the pure math, okay? And we have to be persistent in our pursuit for work. And when you lose a bid, when you're unsuccessful, when nobody wants to hear that, it's a bummer. For me, I take it personally, like, oh man, what did we do that could have really won us that job? But it's knowing how to take that information and apply it to the next project, that next bid, in order to be able to win that next project. And you have to be persistent. I have many stories from many of our past graduates where they talked about, man, I've been trying to bid a certain company, or I've been trying to bid with a certain agency, and I've struck out multiple times, but I just won my first project, and I feel like now I'm on a roll. And you'll learn from, just like in anything we do in life, we learn from the mistakes, you learn from our shortcomings, and you apply that to the future. And what that does is ultimately it helps you to perform better in the end. Maintain that communication. This is very key. Once you win a job, keep in touch not only with the GC, but maybe other subcontractors, other project partners. Get to know the architect, get to know the client, because at the end of the day, once that project is done, there's a start and a finish, all right? And you want to keep being able to repeat that cycle. And you want to be able to learn about projects before everybody else does. I mean, that's the reality of it. In a public scenario, I mean, the alerts, the transparency is going to be out there, but especially with those private clients, I really encourage you to maintain that communication, maintain communication with the GCs so that you know what's coming up down the pipeline, so you don't have to wait on alert. You want to, at a minimum, get the alerts and get the information, but you really want to make sure that you talk with the people that you're working with to get a sense of, hey, what else is coming down the pipeline? It's really important for the longevity of our business. And that goes hand in hand here with repeat clients. And I mentioned the debrief, again, critical to understand not only feedback on your bid, but throughout the course of the project, try to make sure you get feedback from the person that you're working with, whether you're at the GC level or at the sub level. Make sure that there's communication, again, with the owner, and you're getting feedback on performance, and as well as a sub with the GC, making sure that you're getting feedback on your performance, and ultimately that'll hopefully lead you and put you in a position to win the next job too. If I'm not mistaken, I think that wraps it up. This is one of our recent graduating classes from, I think, a couple years ago. And again, we're getting into uncharted waters here with our virtual sessions, but I think it'll go really well, and we're excited to host our next season here within next week. So for those of you who hopefully took some benefit out of this program, out of this session, we have 6 months of this left. So I encourage you to contact me directly. Enrollment is available here through the end of the week. And I'm the leader of the program, the director of the program. I'm able to send you the course curriculum, the schedule of events, and get you registered and logged in for our future classes. So with that, open it back up to more questions, and take it away, Jamie.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Javed. Round of applause for that presentation. Really good information there. I see the hands clapping. Thank you, Javed, for the information shared. And like I mentioned earlier, I will be sharing the presentation post the event. I see the clap hands. Thanks for using the little emoticons there. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or comments or any feedback, or use the chat. Totally up to you guys. And I know we're creeping up on 6 o'clock, so we'll keep it brief.
I had a question. This is Melissa Fuller. I had a question I put in chat
regarding.
Hi. First, I want to say thank you so much. That was an awesome presentation.
Thank you.
Considering the media you had to use, you really delivered well. Thank you. Just quick, Jamie, is CTA now doing bids virtually?
Submitting your bids?
Reading the bids, bid awards.
We're doing the pre-bid meetings virtually. And then the other ones, I believe, are case-by-case scenario, but I can confirm that for you, Melissa.
Okay, how can I get a link to join the pre-bid meeting?
So on our website, there's an option to view all contracts, upcoming or live solicitations. And then you can kind of cue yourself in to be notified for any changes or any, notifications. And with that, for any pre-bid or any information, it'll come to you via email. Also, you want to make sure, if you haven't already, registered as a vendor, as a CTA vendor, also on CTA's website. And within your categories, as we pull the NAICS codes under those particular categories, we email out the invitations to the pre-bid meetings as well, just to make sure that in the event that you missed it through the auto system.
I think I did.
Back in. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And if you ever see anything, Melissa, or anyone, if you see anything out there and you have questions or you're curious to know if a pre-bid meeting, don't hesitate to contact myself or Chanel.
I just posted my email address in the chat board here, if you want to reach out to me. And Jamie, I don't know if you have everybody's contact info. I'm also happy tomorrow to send our registration guide, our overview, to everybody, so you at least have some info to take away. I think you'll already send the presentation, but happy to send the SPP overview to everybody. And for those of you that would like to register, just reply back, or call me. Either way, I'll be ready for getting some candidates.
Would you have our email already?
Yes. So before you all drop off, I do I have the emails of which you put in for the registration when you registered for the series, and that's what I'll be using to communicate. So there's a different email. Please feel to follow up, and we'll make that change. But I also want to just kind of reiterate some of the things that I heard from Javed. As you all think about what opportunities, right? You're going to be faced with a decision to bid or not to bid. And I think with some of the information he shared today can help you better assess that. Again, where you fit in. And so for those of you who have taken me or had me in different cohorts in my previous life, I like to assign homework. So sorry guys, and welcome. So today's homework leading into next week, I want you all to think about Javed's presentation or refer back to it. And I want you to tell me next week where you fit in on that, or on the different contract opportunities. And with that, how do we build your contracting strategy from there? So if you go through, if it's a design build, if it's a private opportunity, thinking about these various opportunities, I want you to just think about where you fit in and what kind of contracting strategies we can build from there. And then I'll be picking on some of you all next week. So don't think you're gonna get away from me. Another thing is not every contract is yours, right? So understanding what's right size for you. Understand if it's cost sensitive, if it's quality sensitive. Sometimes in government, it is lowest price technically accepted, LPTA. So sometimes it is very cost driven. And to be quite frank, right, if you and a larger prime have to pay your folks the same amount, it's really the cost of the material that may make or break the difference. So knowing, you know, again, where you leverage strength to be able to bid better on those opportunities. And then once the solicitation hits the market, I always tell my clients, you're a day late and a few dollars short, right? By the time the solicitations hit the market, folks have already had conversations, they've built teams, they've built relationships. So we want to encourage you to look at the buying plan. As Javed sends out the information of what projects they have coming up, look at those coming down the pipeline so that you can build the relationships with Clarke Construction now. So 6 months down the line, when an opportunity comes available for them, they know who you are, they know where your capacity is. They can, and to be honest, people do business with who we like, who we know, like, and trust. They don't know you, they can't like you, they can't trust you. So we're bringing in these subject matter experts because they have the wealth of knowledge, but also for you all to start building relationships and getting to know who they are and what they do and how to do business with them. So if that's all I have, if no one else has any questions, I'd just like to thank Javed once again. And thank you all for joining, and we will see you all same time next week, 4 p.m. And next week's session is Management at its Best with Kiewit. All right, guys, well, enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you all next Tuesday. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Javi. Good seeing you.
Thanks, you too.
You too,
Good night, everyone. See you next week.
Great job as always, Javed. Great job, Jamie. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, JP. Javed,
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Not a problem. I'll get you over the registration, the attendee list with the contact information on there for you, okay?
Perfect. Yeah, awesome. And if you want, I'll also forward. Actually, Juan Pablo, did you get the info that I sent? I think it was last week.
I think
can't
you just
remember.
dropped off.
Okay, I'll go ahead and forward that registration guide as well. That shows the information. This is just a small brochure. So
Cool. And would you like for me to share that with the group?
yeah, that's fine. I was actually, you know what, if you don't mind, I'll send it because I'd like to just send a quick thank you to everybody and have, you know, for them to have it in their inbox, and then they can directly reply back to me. So, but I'll just send it to you just so you have it on file too.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Thanks again, Terry.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.